Welcome back to the channel. This is The Casuals. I'm Jin,
And I'm Saki.
and today's episode is Time We're Not Getting Back, Borderlands 2, Episode 2. And so, where we last left off was when we were talking about our characters and, I think the warrior incident. And so, to kind of go back in time in terms of like our actual playthrough, we'll probably start from like the beginnings where we first meet these unique NPCs. And so I think the first notable NPCs that we meet is who was it after we meet Claptrap and go to the base
Are you saying in
in
uh,
Sanctuary?
in Sanctuary? Well, there's quite a few characters you meet at first, because you once you're in Sanctuary, it's like, okay, go explore kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first one, right as you enter, you meet Scooter, because he's right up front. So I think we always go to
Right.
Scooter first.
And gosh, my impressions of Scooter was straight up like, I don't know if this is like offensive or not, but like he's the typical, what people would probably describe as like hillbilly type style.
Hillbilly redneck, yeah.
Yeah. Um that, and I don't mean that like in an insulting way. That's just who he is, I think. And like he's genuinely a cool character. He's lovable. And so
He's kind of,
whenever oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say he's kind of slept on, to be honest.
Yeah, he is. He's one of the more underrated characters. That is until unless you play the I believe Borderlands Tales of the Borderlands. That's what it's called, the game.
Yeah, the first Telltale series game.
Yeah. That's where where he really shines in that sense. But unfortunately, if you have never played that, you won't probably stand out as much. Um, anyways, my first impression was just wow. He's kind of like, how do you say this, wild.
Yeah, he is a little bit, I guess, on the crazier fun side, I want to say.
I remember you were like, oh yeah, he owns he runs the catch a ride system. I'm like, what?
Yes, he did actually create the catch a ride, I guess, car system that you use in Borderlands 2.
Yeah, it's where you basically there's these stations that spawn vehicles and scooters mainly behind that. And so yeah, it was pretty cool meeting him. Other than that, I didn't think much else about him just because one, I didn't know much like because this was a first playthrough, I was confused about everything. There was no context for any characters for me, and I think it was the same for you when you first played through. But then when the second time you played through, you already knew who these were.
Yeah, it was a little confusing because I did start with Borderlands 2, but after I beat 2, I went back to Borderlands 1 and I realized all the characters were from 2 were pretty much in 1. So it kind of gave me a little bit of a backstory, and I was like, oh, that would make a lot of sense. Why are these characters here?
Yeah, and so gosh,
If you
who's the
want,
next character?
I was gonna say, if you want, I can. I remember all the characters in Sanctuary. If you want me to
I
keep going.
think there was three more notable. Was Roland there at the first time?
No, you have to go actually. Roland, you get like maybe a third way through the game.
Yeah, that's what I
Uh,
thought.
in the beginning, there were it's a little bit of a spoiler, but it's not much of a spoiler because this game is so old. But when you first arrive in Sanctuary, none of the original 4 Vault Hunters are there. You actually have to go out through the story missions and bring them all together as a clan again. So, with that being said, when you first get to Sanctuary, you meet Scooter, who's, we just talked about. There is also a guy named Dr. Zed. Do you remember Dr. Zed?
Right, the main or the kind of wacko doctor rather.
Yeah, the doctor who actually is not licensed. But he does a lot of, I guess, fusion experiments of the creatures of Pandora, which is, Borderlands 2, you're located on Pandora. But yeah, he does a lot of those kind of scientific fusions of monstrosities, I guess. It's literally called monstrosities, I think, one of the missions. And so with Zed, he's, your doctor. He runs what are those? The health machines where
Yeah,
you
the
can buy
health
health
vending machines, whatever.
vending machines. Thank you. So he's in charge of those. He's not like super duper important because after Borderlands 2, you never hear of him again. So he's just in Borderlands 1 and 2. But he's basically the guy who kind of like you go to for health, pretty much.
And then I remember the next character we meet actually.
Yeah,
After
so
the
the next one you would go meet, like, and I guess in a usual route around Sanctuary, you would run across to the other side and meet Marcus.
yes, and Marcus is a very unique man, least to say.
He's unique, but he's amazing because he's in every single Borderlands game.
And so, I do want to take over this part. First meeting Marcus is very interesting because if you had no context between for Borderlands 1, and you go straight into Borderlands 2 like I did, and, you know, as Saki did too, Marcus is... Well, your first impression of him is, he's an a-hole.
Yes.
Straight off the bat. And you're like, is this like a first impression, like, misunderstanding? And it finds out, nah, that's just who he is.
Yep, he's literally just an a-hole.
And that's who all he is. And then you recognize his voice because he's actually the narrator for the prologues.
Yes,
Of,
for
like,
every prologue.
yeah, so like he talks about the story of how the Vault Hunters came to be, or like these specific, like the characters you play came to whatever location that they're at and why they're there. And so I think he also has, does he shoot something? He shoots a guy's leg. Now that I remember, he shoots a guy's leg, and you're just like, what the heck?
In the opening scene, because when you're running towards him, once you get at a close enough distance, it goes to a cutscene. Each main NPC has that, but Marcus's was, this guy was he doesn't give refunds. I might want to add, he hates it. So his cutscene opens and he's inspecting a gun a customer has troubles with. He's like, the guy's like, yeah, the gun's not shooting properly. And so Marcus looks at it, he pulls it, he shoots the customer in the leg, and he goes, yeah, it looks good to me. And then it just cuts to his name, and that's the whole cutscene, which is great.
And I feel like out of all things, Marcus like gives the most, like, how do you say this? Not annoying, but like, you know, he's definitely like trying to pull profits from you the most.
Oh yeah, he's gonna rip you off, and literally he also runs these ammo dump machines where you buy ammo and like guns if you need guns. Literally, I think if you're like about to buy something or you click on the machine and it brings up the little ammo menu, it literally goes, I think it's something like, yes, all these weapons were retrieved from dead Vault Hunt or dead people. And I'm like, oh, so he's just, you know, taking guns from dead people and reselling them.
Yeah, he has a lot of lines that are like related to, like, you know, basically trying to make most money, like, you know, or like merchant stuff. Like, so he's, one of his I think one of his lines is hands off the merchandise or something like that, which doesn't make sense if he's selling stuff to you, but you know.
Yeah, and then after you leave the vending machine, it goes, no refunds. Like every single time you leave, it just yells, no refunds.
Yeah, and then, gosh, I think after that we don't really, well, maybe Moxie actually, right?
Moxie's in there, but there is one NPC before Moxie.
Oh.
But you kind of meet him later because you have to get so-called the Firehawk first. But I guess we could talk about him really quick right now because he's not super important. Crazy Earl.
Right. Crazy Earl. Gosh. Crazy Earl's is exactly how his name implies. He's crazy. And not crazy in like, oh my god, he does like, you know, cool things or like crazy things. No, he's just insane.
Mentally crazy.
Yeah, mentally crazy. Like, it's just literally what he implies. And so, what Crazy Earl does is, he sells things, using a unique currency, in the game. And so the way Borderlands 1 or I don't know if 1 worked this way, but at least in Borderlands 2, there was the gold currency, right? The regular money currency, gold currency that you can earn by killing mobs, doing quests, and yada yada yada, right? That is your normal currency. And there was a secondary currency during that point of the time when we were playing the game called Iridium, right?
Iridium.
And so what Iridiums are is very rare, unique currencies that I think they drop very rarely, right? They drop from like only like very unique mobs, whether it's bosses or very like specific you know, non-boss characters that do honestly function as a boss. And so they're very rare to come by. And what Crazy Earl does is that he has a shop that sells you stuff based off of the currency of iridium. And what he sells are, well, you kind of need him even if you don't like him, because he sells inventory upgrades.
Yeah, ammo upgrades, inventory upgrades, and you have a safe where you can store your precious stuff,
Yeah, he upgrades that too.
and you can upgrade that through him as well.
And so, lore-wise, he's not that important. He does come into some relevancy in Borderlands 3, but that's some other time to talk about. But in actual terms of, like, story relevancy, nah, he's not that relevant in Borderlands 2. So, I mean, yeah, it's just a quick thing. You just beat him, you're like, wow, I really don't want to interact with him.
Yeah, until you absolutely need, ammo upgrade, because that does help later throughout the game.
Yeah. And so we move on to, Moxie. I think what's her actual title? Like, full-on title? Mad Moxie?
Mad Moxie.
Yeah, Mad Moxie. So Mad Moxie is another unique, like, every Borderlands character is very unique in their own way, right? Very distinctive. There's no overlapping characters in terms of that, in terms of the unique NPCs. And so Mad Moxie's is very unique because, first impression you get from her is, like, she's, like, how do you say this? Almost, like, chill?
Yeah, she's pretty chill. You kind of get like the almost, I want to say, stripper vibe, just because she has, big breasts, I guess.
And, how do you say this? She calls you Sugar right away. She
Yeah.
refers everyone to Sugar. So, like, it's not like, you specific thing, but, like, she just basically calls everyone Sugar. But, like, she gives that, like, how do you say this? Hostess vibe, I guess? Not necessarily like a brothel, but, like, just like a bar. Like, 'cause she runs a bar. She literally runs a bar. That's her thing.
She runs a bar in like almost every game, I believe.
Yeah. And so Mad Moxie, like, in her case, I think most people gravitate towards Mad Moxie not because of her looks or anything like that, but just simply because she's pretty much one of the more nicer people out there.
Yeah, I would definitely say she's a fan favorite.
And, like, she's not crazy or anything like that. And her requests are usually like, oh, you get why she's requesting them.
Yeah.
And so
She's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And her quests all her quest lines are actually pretty unique. Very unique in that, like, it's not simply, hey, retrieve this from here, or like, hey, go kill this. I mean, a lot of the Borderlands quests are unique, like, because they make you do unique encounters most of the time, but, like, hers are pretty unique when it comes to that.
Yeah, her quests kind of reveal her backstory, I want to say.
Yeah, if anything, they do reveal her backstory more than any other NPCs. And so, yeah, Mad Moxie's is more of a fan favorite. Definitely one of my more favorite ones, just because her quests were always fun to do.
Yeah, can I add something as well?
Go ahead.
So with her quests, most of the time she'll give you a unique gun of her own. It's, the Moxie version of a gun, which one of them is pretty overpowered, I want to say. Do you remember the grog nozzle?
Yes, I do. The grog nozzle is
The
absolutely...
grog nozzle, I think, was the most broken gun in the game. One of them.
And
there's a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple of broken guns, but grog nozzle is definitely up there, and we'll probably talk about it in the upcoming next episode, where we really go into details about our builds. Grog nozzle happens to be one of the centric ones because of how it functions. But it's a very long explanation of how we even got there, so we'll leave it for now, but just understand that she gives you a very good gun called the grog nozzle.
Yes. And I do want to add one more thing with Mad Moxie, because the next NPC I want to talk about will kind of relate to it. You won't know this initially when you first start the game, but Moxie is actually the mother to Scooter and another character we're going to talk about right after this called Ellie.
Yeah.
So we're moving on to Ellie. She is kind of like Scooter, but female version, pretty much. She's also, like, pretty crazy as well. Like redneck crazy.
Redneck crazy, and she has a bit of Irish in her.
Yeah. No.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
I think Scooter was the more Irish, and
Right. Scooter is the Irish side, and then so to explain, Moxie also has had multiple children with multiple different people. um, she ain't exactly like the one husband type deal. And so
yeah.
Scooter and Ellie are both from different fathers, and I believe Scooter came from like a more Irish centric family.
Yes, and then Ellie came from more of a redneck family.
Yes.
And later in the game, there's actually a story mission, or not story mission, side mission called Clan Wars between the two clans, the Irish clan and the kind of more redneck clan, but we'll save that for another time. But that's kind of more of the backstory to her.
Yeah. And Ellie's first impression is, wow, she looks dangerous. Because
Yeah,
she uses like those those compactor like
Crash
that.
Compact.
Yeah, like those the crush compactors that like crush cars.
Yep.
She uses that to crush a bandit, and bandits are basically like the enemies in the game. They're basically what they imply, they're bandits. And she uses one to literally crush a bandit.
Yeah, and you see the the blood kind of go everywhere because that person was stuck in I believe their little plane they were flying, and then she just crushes the person.
Yeah. It's
And
you're just like, dangerous?
and then she looks at you and goes, "That was awesome." And I'm like, "Oh,
Oh, I see. And then you're like, no, she's on the more chill side, but still crazy, but chill side.
yeah."
And so, yeah, that was the introduction to Ellie, and she actually does a couple of quests. And so that is pretty much it for like the initial unique NPCs. And later on, we start meeting more and more unique NPCs. And one of them I really want to talk about because I think we met this person first before we meet the next one I want to talk about, which this unique NPC that we meet, I think might be related to one of the side quests that Moxie gives. And he is infamous for saying only one line and one line only.
I know where you're going with this.
Do you remember his name?
Steve.
Steve, right?
Yep, it was Steve, and he says one word.
And before we even get to say that one word, I remember you were like, "Oh, let's do the side quest." I'm like, and you're like, "You're gonna like this one." I'm like, "Oh, why?" He's like, "You're gonna meet," he's like, and you're like, "Just wait for it." And so you have to drive off into like the middle of nowhere, type deal, and in that middle of nowhere, there's like kind of like a bunker house situation where like there's just like a door or something, and then there's an NPC standing outside, and so he wears like a mask, I think, right? He wears a mask, doesn't he?
Yeah, all bandits wear the mask.
Yeah. And so he comes out, and you're just like, talk to him. I'm like, okay. And then I talk to him, and all of a sudden I just hear, "Ayo!" And then you just like start laughing. I'm like, wait, what? Like, I'm just like, what do you mean, right? And you just keep on talking to him, right? And then he gives a quest line, whatever, and he doesn't talk again, right? It's until after you accept his quest line, and then talk to him again, then you realize he only goes, "Ayo, ayo," for every time you talk to him, and that's it. There's no like there's no flavor text, there's no like subtext, whatever, like describing what he's saying. It's just literally "Ayo."
Yeah, I remember when I told you about that. After you complete literally like the one mission you get from him, I was doing another mission. I told you to do that and go turn in the mission. And because I'm on the other side of the map from where you were after you turn in the mission. And as I'm driving closer, all I hear in the distance is you spamming him going, "Ayo, ayo, ayo, ayo." I'm like, oh my god, he's learned.
You made the mistake of leaving me with the fondue toy. And so like, Borderlands 2 has a lot of these unique type NPCs where they do very unique things or like, have some strange quirk to them, right? And that's just one of them. Steve is one of them. And thankfully, Steve doesn't, like, because you only have one quest line with him, you don't really do anything with him after. And he just kind of exists.
Yep.
He's permanent. Which
Not
moves
gonna
on.
lie, I think he's in Borderlands 1 as well, and he only says "Ayo."
So he has a long-standing reputation. And so, the second unique NPC I really want to talk about that's very memorable for most players when they're playing through the game for the first time. It's gonna jump a bit because we have it's kind of a bit of a leap in terms of a unique NPC that like isn't like a long-standing story character. It's just a side quest. Is that you meet you're actually we should first talk about meeting with the other Vault Hunters, which is first I think Roland, right?
Uh, Actually, the first Vault Hunter you go and
Oh,
get is
Lilith.
Lilith,
Lilith, right?
the
So we meet,
Firehawk.
yeah, we meet Lilith, right? And Lilith, I think my first impression was, wow, she's punk.
Yeah, she gives off that I'm a badass kind of vibe.
Yeah, she's just like, hey, sorry, I need you to help me, and she has this like cool powers, whatever. I'm just like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah, actually, the four Vault Hunters we're talking about, um, they're the four playable characters in Borderlands 1. So if you didn't
Yes.
play Borderlands 1, you won't really know their powers very well or their specialties. So he was a
Yeah.
little bit, Ken was a little confused at first.
Yeah, so like, she was like doing all this like, unique stuff, and I was just like, oh, that's cool, and we had to do a lot of quests. And then she kind of fades out of story relevancy because she like goes like, she does the I gotta go, you do stuff for me type deal. So she kind of disappears for a while doing new quests. And so I think the second character is Roland, right?
Yeah, the second Vault Hunter is Roland. You do have to actually save him because he was captured.
Right. And then we save him. He's kind of like the, I guess, not super generic, or I guess more quote unquote generic, like, soldier type dude.
Yeah, he's also the leader.
Yeah, he's a
of your-
leader. He's like basically you would assume like he's a commander, like just based on how he talks and how he acts. He's like a straight up commander. And he's cool, chill. Kind of like a new, like, how do you say this? A refreshing change of pace compared to like your previous unique characters that you meet. And so,
Yeah.
oh,
Sorry, I just thought I'd say something. Yeah, he's pretty, I want to say, a generic soldier.
yeah, but it's not in a bad way. It's just who he is. Gosh. And then this third Vault Hunter I think we meet is Mordecai, right?
Yes, Mordecai.
And oh my god, there's so much to talk about. So Mordecai, he's very unique because we meet his bird first. I think that's the case, right? We meet his bird first.
No, you meet both at the same time.
Really?
Yeah, because we're gonna get to one of my favorite NPCs after these guys. But in that area, you're looking out, and he just kind of appears on one of the tallest buildings. Of course, drunk. That's one of his things. He likes to drink. And you meet him and his, I don't even know what they're called in the game, but it's just his bird, Bloodwing.
Bloodwing,
Kind of
yeah.
flies onto his arm, and you kind of meet them both at the same time.
Right. So like his actual first introduction is him sniping these things called Varkids. On the map for you. He doesn't directly appear. He just snipes them. You have no idea where he's sniping them from, but he just snipes them for you.
Yes.
And then you're just like, what? Yeah, who's the sniper? And then like you do this whole quest line. And you meet Mordecai and his falcon, which is Bloodwing, as Saki mentioned earlier. And he's pretty cool, but like he kind of just is laid back. You don't really do much. But before we continue here, there is a very unique NPC and beloved by many, including you, Saki. Would you like to talk about this particular NPC?
Gladly. So, in the Borderlands series, she does not appear in Borderlands 1, sadly, but from 2, pretty much, really only 2. She skips the pre-sequel, because that's before Borderlands 2, technically. So, she's in 2 and 3, mainly.
Yep.
But her name is Tiny Tina.
Mm-hmm.
And she is a 13-year-old girl. There's a huge backstory I don't want to get into because I could talk about that forever. But she's a 13-year-old girl who is pretty much by herself because her parents were killed. But she was saved by Roland, we already talked about. And so she has a unique connection to Roland. She sees him as like the father figure, technically. But from even younger than 13 as a little girl, she just got into explosives, which we could talk about later because it's just in her lore. But she loves explosives, and by golly, she gives you the greatest missions ever.
And yeah, the first impression of her was just like, oh my god, explosions, because she literally, I think she blows up a person in your introduction.
Yep. Once you get close enough to her, she starts singing "I'm a Little Teapot," but in her version. And at the end, she detonates some TNT, which is strapped to a bandit, which is tied down to a chair, and he just explodes.
All right, I'm gonna do something really quick, but continue talking about Tiny Tina and our adventures, and what my impressions were, because I think you recognize my impressions. I'll be back really quick, like within 1 minute.
You got it. So, Tiny Tina, greatest character I think ever in the whole game. Yeah, so we first meet her. Jin was like, "Who's this person?" And then, the intro goes through, and he just looks at me and goes, "That girl is kind of insane." And I'm like, "She is, but she is amazing." So basically, you meet Tiny Tina because you're trying to stop a train to get a power core for Sanctuary's shield, like defensive shield. So she has you go and collect missiles, which is great. And she blows up the train. And basically, after that, you go progress through the story. And then you come back later to her, and she's having a tea party. And she wants you to, collect her toys. Like her stuffed animal, I think, is one. She had, I think, a bug in a jar is another one. And she wanted you to get her kidnapper. And so basically at the end, her tea party ends with her electric chairing the kidnapper.
Yeah, she
You
does.
remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, because and then like not only that, it's not like you're witnessing the tea party happen in real time because during that time that kidnapper calls for his friends.
Yeah, because you have to basically lure him from his like little outpost camp. And basically once that happens, you have to defend Tina while she's basically killing him, torturing him.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you can tell Tiny Tina is a wild ride, and she's so beloved that I think, even has like 3 deals or like 2 DLCs after her.
One main one in the Borderlands 2, which was Tiny Tina's Dragon Keep, Assault on Dragon Keep, and she actually got her own game, which was Tiny Tina's Wonderlands.
Yeah, and she's a very creative character in terms of like because she's so crazy and insane that like you can definitely get a lot of unique things out of her, and so that's Tiny Tina. And then moving on with the story more and more so, gosh, we meet. I think we've like finally understand who Handsome Jack. Like you meet glimpses of him in the beginning of the story. Like he kind of talks to you in the beginning, but you don't really think much of him. But they say he's the real threat, right? It is until we progress with the story and along with Mordecai, where his bird gets kidnapped, Bloodwing gets kidnapped, that we learn what this character named Handsome Jack is really all about.
Yeah, I think Handsome Jack, he's the main villain of the game, but I think he's probably the best villain ever created, to be honest. There's so much backstory to him, there's so much lore with him. I think he's just a really well created villain.
And if you just play Borderlands 2, again, if you just play Borderlands 2 without ever knowing what's going on, right? In the previous Borderlands game and even in the Borderlands pre-sequel game, your impression of him is grade A-hole.
Oh yeah, that's basically who he is though.
Yeah.
Because of his past events of his
But
life.
because you don't know his past events, you don't realize why he's acting like this. So all you think is that he's just a megalomaniac in a sense.
Yep.
But in reality, it's not like that. Past story gives a lot of context as to why he became the way he is, which makes a lot of sense. But in this case, I just thought he was a grade A asshole.
I think almost everyone did.
Yeah. And so cuts. We're gonna like, how do you say this? TLDR this. He captures Bloodwing. Kind of forcibly enlarges him using forbidden using technology. That basically makes Bloodwing suffer in the process and blows his head off at the end.
Yeah, you basically have to try and save her, the Bloodwing, but in the end, she basically, gets killed. Head is blown off, like Jin said, and holy crap, Mordecai, once he knows that her head was blown off, he goes like Super Saiyan.
Yeah, he just goes insane, starts sniping everything in his vicinity.
And one shots everything pretty much.
Yeah, I think it's programmed to literally just one shot no matter what the state is.
Yeah, so it could be like, as we were talking in our first kind of preview episode of Borderlands 2, there's badasses and super badasses. Yeah, usually for us, it'd take a while to kill a super badass, but he can one-shot it.
Yeah, that's just, his anger being channeled.
Yeah, basically using his anger and just murdering everything.
Got
Anyways, let's keep it going. The last Vault Hunter we meet, I think, is probably my second favorite. I want to say Lilith was my favorite. But you meet a man named Brick. And he is this big, muscular guy.
And Brick is very fitting for him. The name.
Yeah, definitely. So when you first meet him, you have to basically kill his whole crew.
Yeah.
For you to even talk to him. He's like the king. You have to request an audience with the king, and to talk to him, you got to kill his whole crew pretty much.
And he has to deem you worthy.
Yes.
And so
go ahead.
And so Brick is like, he despite you having to kill his crew and him being like the whole king and everything, you may think like, oh, this guy, like, because if you only, again, going back to the part where you only play Borderlands 2 and not any of the other Borderlands game beforehand, you're gonna think, wow, this guy's kind of insane in the mind. Turns out, no, he's just a really energetic dude.
He's like the Hulk without being green, and he's not angry.
Yeah, basically
He's
that.
like a big dude, yeah. Oh, he loves to say, I punch it.
He loves punching things. And so, how do you say this? So, like, his hideout is kind of unique. It's just filled, like insanely filled with bandits. That's what it's basically his whole thing is. And, there is a unique bandit that we were wanting to talk to. I mentioned earlier there's these two very unique NPCs, and one of them are like the non-like story NPCs, and one of them is actually in Brick's base area, where he's located, or Brick is initially located when you first find him. And do you want to talk about this man and his name?
Yeah, I can't remember his name exactly.
I remember his name.
Was it Shooty McFace or Face McShooty?
Shooty McFace.
It was Shooty McFace. So he was actually not a bandit. He was a psycho.
Yes.
So he was a psycho just as a side quest, and his name was Shooty McFace. And honestly, if you can't figure it out from there, I'm sorry, but his side quest is literally him yelling at you saying, "Shoot me in the face."
Yep.
And he won't die. You won't die if you don't shoot him in the face. You can shoot him in the body, the arms, nothing happens.
Doesn't matter. You can throw grenades, whatever. He won't die.
You have to shoot him in the face, and that's once you shoot him, he goes, "Shoot me in the face, do it, shoot me." So you shoot him, and as he dies, he goes, "Thank you," and that's it. That was the whole quest.
Yep, that's it. And you were so excited to introduce me to this NPC. I was just like, well, what could this be all about? And then they just see Shooting McFace. I'm just like,
And I'm like, yes, it implies exactly what you think.
And then you just like, and then I remember being so confused. I'm like, he really wants me to shoot him in the face?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, just go talk to him and do the mission really quick. It'll be super quick, I promise.
I'm like, what do you mean I can do this super quick? Like, don't we have to go out somewhere, like get a gun or something? And he's like, nope. And then you just looked at me, and I was just like, okay. And then I took the quest, and then as he said before, as Saki said before, all you hear is, "Shoot me in the face! Do it! Shoot me!" I was just like, And then I shoot him in the face, and then you're like, or before I shoot him in the face, you're like, just, and you were like, wait for him to say something afterwards. I'm like, oh, okay. And then after I shoot him, as Saki said before, he goes, "Thank you," and then he just dies. I'm like, and I was so confused. I'm like, that's it? And you're like, yeah, well, you shot him in the face. I'm like, I expected more.
Yeah, it's probably the fastest side mission in the whole game, but it's probably the most funny too, because it just catches you off guard. Yes, his name is weird, but you're actually not expecting to shoot the guy in the face, which was hilarious to me at first.
Yeah, and gosh, this is only, I think, about half, like a little bit more than halfway. I would say 60% of more NPCs we have to talk about until later in the game.
At least these are all the good guys.
Yeah, quote unquote good guys.
All the enemies.
And so we'll probably leave it here for now, because it's
Do you
getting close
mind
to
if
our.
I say one more thing?
Oh, go ahead.
I want to say for if we continue doing the enemy NPCs, like the bad guy NPCs,
Mm-hmm.
do you want to go over as well? Because there's not as many bad guy NPCs, but do you want to go over the Easter eggs in the whole game? Because there's
Yes,
quite a
we
few
should.
that I
We
would like.
definitely should.
All right, that's what I was thinking too.
We'll touch on that next time for the next episode. But for now, we have to end it. So I'll close this off. So I'm Jin,
And I'm Saki.
and this is the Casuals. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.